Your brain burns through more energy than any other organ in your body, and it never stops asking for fuel. But here's the problem. Most of what people eat on a daily basis is basically empty calories as far as your neurons are concerned. Here's what almost nobody realizes. While supplement companies are selling synthetic nootropics in colorful bottles, some of the most well-researched brain-boosting compounds on the planet are already sitting in your kitchen, your grocery store, and your spice rack. This isn't folklore. Traditional healers in India, China, and the Mediterranean identified these foods centuries before anyone understood neurotransmitters or nerve growth factor. And now, peer-reviewed clinical trials are catching up, confirming some of these traditional uses while quietly complicating others. That honesty matters, because I'm not going to cherry-pick only the flattering studies. Some of these foods have genuinely mixed results in the research, and I think you deserve to know that too. Today, I'm showing you 11 superfoods with real science behind their effects on memory, focus, and mental performance. Stick around, because number 6 is the vegetable a Chicago research team found could make your brain function the equivalent of 11 years younger. And number 11 is a 3,000-year-old herb that a meta-analysis of over 400 people confirmed measurably speeds up attention and reaction time, a finding researchers say deserves a real head-to-head trial against prescription cognitive drugs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we post new videos every week connecting traditional wisdom with modern research. Let's get into it. Here are 11 superfoods that improve brain and mental ability, ranked from solid to absolutely remarkable. Number 1. Blueberries, the antioxidant rewiring the aging brain. Let's start with the fruit that has more published cognitive research behind it than almost any other superfood on this list. Blueberries are absurdly rich in anthocyanins, the compounds that give them their deep blue-purple color, and these compounds do something remarkable. They cross the blood-brain barrier. In a randomized controlled trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, healthy older adults who consumed wild blueberry powder daily for 12 weeks showed measurable improvements in vascular function and cognitive performance compared to a placebo group. Other trials have found that wild blueberry juice supplementation improved memory function, specifically paired associative learning and word list recall, in adults with mild cognitive impairment. Brain imaging studies have even shown increased activation in memory-related regions after chronic blueberry supplementation. Now here's the honest part. Not every trial has been a slam dunk. A 6-month study in adults with metabolic syndrome found that blueberry supplementation improved cardiometabolic markers but did not produce strong improvements in cognition, mood, or alertness in that specific population. Science doesn't always agree with itself, and I'd rather tell you that than pretend every study lines up perfectly. The traditional use here is almost embarrassingly simple. A daily handful of fresh or frozen blueberries, ideally with the skin intact, where most of the anthocyanins concentrate. No extraction, no processing, just the whole fruit the way it's been eaten for generations across blueberry-growing regions of North America. Blueberries got dismissed for a long time as a diet food, a low-calorie snack for people counting macros. But the emerging picture is that this humble berry may be doing quiet, measurable work on your blood vessels and your neurons at the same time. Number 2. Eggs, the forgotten nutrient hiding in plain sight. Eggs get a complicated reputation because of the cholesterol conversation, but there's a nutrient in the yolk that deserves far more attention: choline. Choline is the direct building block for acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that's central to memory and learning, so central that the cholinergic hypothesis of age-related memory decline has been studied since the 1980s. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study out of Japan gave middle-aged and older adults 300 milligrams of egg yolk choline daily for 12 weeks, roughly the amount in 2 eggs, and found a significant improvement in verbal memory compared to placebo, tracking directly with increases in plasma choline levels. Separately, long-term cohort research out of China followed dietary choline intake over 22 years and found that higher intake was associated with slower cognitive decline. A systematic review of egg intake and cognition also found that moderate consumption, around 2 eggs worth of choline daily, was consistently linked to better outcomes than either very low or very high intake, suggesting more isn't always better. Traditional diets across the Mediterranean and East Asia have long treated eggs as a foundational protein, eaten simply, often soft-boiled or poached, to preserve the yolk's nutrient density. That's still the most direct way to access this compound. Cooking method matters less than simply not skipping the yolk, since that's where nearly all the choline lives. Eggs never disappeared from the plate, but somewhere along the way, we forgot they were quietly supplying one of the only nutrients your brain uses to physically manufacture a memory-forming neurotransmitter. Number 3. Walnuts, the brain-shaped nut with a complicated report card. Walnuts look like tiny brains, and folk medicine practitioners in multiple cultures actually used that resemblance as a signature that the plant was meant to nourish the organ it resembled. It's a charming coincidence, but the real story is in the chemistry. Walnuts are the only tree nut with a meaningful amount of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fat, alongside polyphenols that fight oxidative stress and inflammation. 2 processes strongly linked to cognitive decline. Here's where I want to be completely upfront with you. The largest and most rigorous trial on walnuts and the brain, a 2-year randomized controlled study out of Barcelona and Loma Linda called the WAHA study, found no overall difference in global cognition between the walnut group and the control group across the full sample of more than 700 elderly participants. That's a real, well-designed trial, and it came back null on its primary outcome. Where it got interesting was in a secondary, exploratory analysis. Among participants from the Barcelona site, specifically, walnut consumption was linked to meaningfully slower cognitive decline, equivalent to roughly 1.3 fewer years of brain aging, along with functional MRI evidence of preserved working memory networks. That finding needs more research before anyone treats it as settled. I'm telling you both halves of that story because a food that misses its headline result but shows a real signal underneath it is more interesting and more honest than a food I just tell you fixes cognitive decline. The traditional use is simple: a small daily handful, roughly an ounce, eaten raw to preserve the delicate omega-3 content, which degrades with high heat. Number 4. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, and mackerel are rich in DHA and EPA, the 2 long-chain omega-3 fatty acids that make up a significant portion of the fatty tissue in your brain cell membranes. Unlike some nutrients your body can synthesize on its own, DHA is considered conditionally essential, meaning your body's own production usually isn't enough, and it needs to come from your diet. The research here is genuinely mixed, and that mix is worth understanding rather than glossing over. A large dose-response meta-analysis covering 58 trials found that every additional 2,000 milligrams per day of omega-3 supplementation was linked to significant improvements in attention, perceptual speed, and language function. At the same time, several well-controlled individual trials, including ones in healthy young adults and cardiac surgery patients, found no measurable cognitive benefit from fish oil supplementation over 12 weeks. The likely explanation is that omega-3s appear to matter most for people whose baseline intake is already low, and for slow, cumulative processes, like preventing decline rather than sharply boosting performance in someone already well-nourished. Coastal and Mediterranean populations that eat fatty fish 2 to 3 times a week, prepared simply, grilled or baked rather than fried, have long shown better outcomes in observational cognitive aging research. That's the traditional pattern worth borrowing. Whole fish, regularly, rather than sporadic high-dose supplementation. Fish never left the plate in coastal cultures, but industrialized diets moved away from it, and the research increasingly suggests that was a genuine loss, not just a change in taste. Number 5. Dark chocolate. The bitter truth about a sweet reputation. Cacao is loaded with flavonols, particularly one called epicatechin, and these compounds are believed to improve blood flow to the brain by boosting nitric oxide production. Ceremonial use of cacao in Mesoamerican cultures treated it as a stimulant and tonic centuries before anyone understood vascular biology. Multiple trials support the blood flow story. An 8-week study among healthy older adults found that consuming high flavanol cocoa, at least 900 milligrams a day, significantly improved cognitive function compared to a low flavanol version. Acute studies have also shown that a single dose of flavanol-rich cocoa can increase oxygenation in the brain and improve accuracy on working memory tasks within hours. But again, I want to give you the full picture. An 8-week, double-blind, randomized trial specifically using commercially available dark chocolate found no measurable cognitive difference between high flavanol and low flavanol chocolate in healthy older adults. Other researchers have pointed out that most of the positive findings come from concentrated flavanol extracts, not the chocolate bar you'd buy at a grocery store, where flavanol content varies enormously and is often destroyed during processing. The practical takeaway is about sourcing. Dark chocolate above 70% cacao, minimally processed, retains meaningfully more flavanols than milk chocolate or heavily Dutch processed cocoa. A small square isn't a guaranteed cognitive intervention, but it's a genuinely defensible daily habit if you're choosing dessert anyway. Chocolate got rebranded as an indulgence somewhere along the way, but its origin as a functional, even ceremonial plant preparation is closer to the truth than the candy aisle lets on. Number 6. Leafy greens. This is the one I teased at the start, and it comes from one of the most respected long-term aging studies in existence. Researchers at Rush University in Chicago followed nearly 1,000 older adults for an average of almost 5 years as part of the Memory and Aging Project. Every participant reported their diet, and their cognitive function was tested repeatedly over time. The results, published in the journal Neurology, found that people who ate roughly 1 serving of green leafy vegetables a day, spinach, kale, collard greens, mustard greens, had a significantly slower rate of cognitive decline than those who rarely ate them. The magnitude of the effect, after adjusting for age, education, and other lifestyle factors, was equivalent to being 11 years younger cognitively. When the researchers examined which specific nutrients were driving it, vitamin K, lutein, folate, and beta-carotene all showed independent associations with slower decline, with vitamin K linked to cognitive protection for the first time in that particular study. Traditional diets across the Mediterranean and parts of Asia have built leafy greens into daily meals for generations, often lightly cooked with olive oil, which actually helps absorb the fat-soluble vitamin K and lutein far better than eating the greens raw and dry. Leafy greens never disappeared from anyone's plate entirely, but they got treated as a diet obligation rather than what this research suggests they actually are: one of the more consistently protective foods for long-term brain aging that we currently have evidence for. If you're realizing that some of the most powerful brain foods have been sitting in your kitchen the whole time, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who are searching for real, honest information instead of supplement marketing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time, because we're only halfway through, and the next 5 foods get more interesting. Let's keep going. Number 7. Green tea, the calm focus ancient monks discovered by accident. Buddhist monks in East Asia have used green tea for over 1,000 years to stay alert during long hours of meditation, without the jittery crash associated with straight caffeine. It turns out they stumbled onto a real synergy. Green tea contains both caffeine and an amino acid called L-theanine, and research increasingly shows these two compounds work better together than either does alone. A systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized, placebo-controlled trials found that the combination of L-theanine and caffeine produced small to moderate improvements in attentional task performance, particularly in the hours after intake, while L-theanine alone showed more modest, inconsistent effects on cognition by itself. Individual studies back this up. In one crossover trial, L-theanine combined with caffeine significantly improved reaction time and accuracy on visual discrimination tasks compared to either compound alone or a placebo. Separately, a study in middle-aged and older adults found that a single dose of L-theanine reduced reaction time on attention tasks and improved accuracy on working memory tasks. The traditional preparation matters here. Whole leaf green tea, brewed rather than instant powder, delivers L-theanine, caffeine, and catechins like XG together, which appears to be closer to how these compounds were studied than isolated supplements. Green tea never went anywhere in East Asian daily life, but the West mostly imported it as a diet trend, missing the actual mechanism, a genuine synergy between two compounds working on different neurochemical pathways at the same time. Number 8. Turmeric, the golden spice with a bioavailability problem. Turmeric has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years, and its active compound, curcumin, has become one of the most studied polyphenols in modern nutrition science. Curcumin is believed to cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce neuroinflammation, one of the proposed drivers of age-related cognitive decline. A 12-month, randomized, placebo-controlled study of community-dwelling older adults found a meaningful difference on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, favoring the curcumin group, driven largely by the placebo group's decline over time, rather than dramatic gains among those taking curcumin. A more recent systematic review concluded that curcumin significantly improved working memory across several different adult populations, including people with metabolic impairment and mild cognitive concerns. But the same review, and others before it, are candid that results across the broader body of research have been inconsistent, and that's mostly a delivery problem. Curcumin, on its own, is poorly absorbed by the digestive tract, so trials using standard turmeric powder tend to show weaker effects than trials using enhanced, bioavailable formulations. This is where traditional practice actually anticipated modern pharmacology. Ayurvedic preparations have long paired turmeric with black pepper and a fat source, like ghee or oil, and black pepper's piperine compound has since been shown to dramatically increase curcumin absorption in the bloodstream. Turmeric never lost its place in the spice rack, but most people using it in cooking are getting a fraction of the absorption that clinical trials require to see a measurable effect. Number 9. Rosemary, the herb of remembrance, literally. Rosemary has been associated with memory since antiquity. Greek students reportedly wore sprigs of it while studying for exams, and the herb has carried the nickname the herb of remembrance through centuries of folk medicine. Modern research has actually traced a plausible mechanism behind that reputation. Researchers at Northumbria University found that simply being exposed to rosemary's aroma measurably affected cognitive performance, and the effect tracked directly with blood concentrations of a compound called 1,8-cineol, one of rosemary's primary aromatic compounds, which is small and fat-soluble enough to cross from the bloodstream into the brain. Participants with higher absorbed 1,008-cineol levels performed faster and more accurately on tasks measuring working memory and sustained attention. A separate study found that participants in a rosemary-scented room performed better specifically on prospective memory, the kind involved in remembering to do something at a future point, compared to a scent-free control room. The practical application is refreshingly low effort. This isn't about eating large quantities of the herb, it's about ambient exposure, a few sprigs of fresh rosemary near a workspace, or diffusing the essential oil while studying or working on a demanding task. Rosemary got filed away as a cooking herb for roasted potatoes and little else, but its folk reputation as a memory aid appears to have a genuine, measurable chemical basis, one that ancient students may have understood better than we gave them credit for. Number 10. Lion's mane mushroom, the fungus that grows nerve cells. Lion's mane has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries, prized both as a food and a tonic for the nervous system. What makes it genuinely unusual among the foods on this list is a specific class of compounds it contains, hericenones and erinacines, which laboratory research shows can cross the blood-brain barrier and stimulate the production of nerve growth factor, a protein essential for the survival and growth of neurons. A double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial in Japanese adults with mild cognitive impairment found that 16 weeks of lion's mane extract produced significant improvements in cognitive performance compared to placebo, though the researchers noted the benefits declined again after supplementation stopped. A separate acute trial in healthy young adults found that a single dose improved performance on the Stroop test, a measure of processing speed and inhibitory control, within about 90 minutes. I want to be balanced here too. A clinical trial in Alzheimer's disease patients found that 49 weeks of lion's mane improved participants' ability to perform daily activities like cooking and cleaning, but did not produce a significant improvement on formal cognitive testing compared to placebo. Researchers reviewing the overall evidence describe the cognitive effects as genuinely mixed across the small trials conducted so far, and are calling for larger, longer studies before firm conclusions can be drawn. Traditionally, lion's mane is simply cooked as a meaty, seafood-like mushroom, sautéed in a bit of butter or oil. It's one of the few items on this list that functions as food first and supplement second, exactly how it was used in the traditions it comes from. Number 11. Bacopa monnieri, the 3,000-year-old nootropic modern medicine can't dismiss. And here we are at number 11, the one I saved for last, because it currently has the strongest cumulative clinical evidence on this entire list. Bacopa, also called Brahmi, has been central to Ayurvedic medicine for roughly 3,000 years, traditionally used specifically for memory, learning, and mental clarity, a remarkably narrow and specific traditional claim to have made without any modern testing equipment. A meta-analysis pooling 9 randomized, placebo-controlled trials and 437 subjects found that Bacopa supplementation, taken consistently for at least 12 weeks, produced measurable improvements in speed of attention and a significant decrease in choice reaction time compared to placebo. Individual trials back this up with more specific detail. A 6-week, randomized, placebo-controlled study in medical students found meaningful improvements in memory retention with a standardized Bacopa extract. Another trial found that chronic use over 3 months significantly improved retention of newly learned information in adults between 40 and 60. The researchers behind the largest meta-analysis were direct about what's still missing. No trial has yet pitted Bacopa head-to-head against an existing prescription cognitive medication, which is the next real test of how it stacks up. Traditional Ayurvedic preparation involves the whole leaf, often taken as a brew or ghee-based extract, since Bacopa's active compounds, called bacchosides, appear to be better absorbed with a fat source, echoing the same pattern we saw with turmeric. Bacopa stayed largely confined to Ayurvedic practice for centuries, while Western science looked elsewhere. Now that the trials exist, It may be the single most evidence-backed traditional cognitive herb we currently have. 11 foods, 3 continents of traditional wisdom, and a body of modern research that's honest enough to admit what it doesn't fully know yet. That's really the through line of this whole list. None of these foods are a guaranteed fix, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I told you otherwise. What the research actually shows is a pattern. Foods rich in specific compounds, anthocyanins, choline, omega-3s, flavonols, bacchosides, that consistently show up correlated with better cognitive outcomes, even when individual trials disagree on the details. If you're looking for a place to start, the foods with the most consistent traditional use and modern research overlap were the leafy greens, the green tea, and the bacopa. But this isn't a prescription. It's information you can bring to your own diet, or better yet, to a conversation with your own doctor if you're managing a specific cognitive concern. If this changed how you think about what's already in your kitchen, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me which food on this list surprised you the most. Are you team ancient herbs, team everyday pantry staples, or team exotic mushroom? I read every comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and ring the bell so you never miss a video connecting traditional wisdom with the research that's finally catching up to it. See you in the next one.